Hello, my name's Compass, and this is part 2 of my beginner's guide to the Metropolix sequencer from Intellijel. In this video, we're going to be concentrating on the track buttons down here, from order, length, division, swing, slide, and gate. We're going to start off by looking at the length button. I have a sequence here, which is 16 pulses long, so we have 2, 2, 2, 1, 3, 2, 3, and 1. So I've set it to be 16 pulses. And if you look at the screen, the pulses are set to auto. So at the moment, and the stages are set to 8. So we're using all 8 pitch stages. So all 8 stages. Each one of these is a stage. So we're using the pitch, we are using the pulse count, and we're using the gate for all 8 of these. With the pulses set to auto, our sequence here can be any length at all. I've set it to 16 so that at every single bar it will loop back and be in time with the kick. But if we start messing with the pulse count, it will just keep the length of our sequence will just keep growing and growing, so we can just stick some of these up. It's still using all of these 8 stages, but now whatever this is the length of our sequence. It will not be in time with our kick drum. And as I said in the first video, given the kind of music I make, I don't really like that. So it can be useful in certain situations, and I will come on to that, which is why we're starting with the length button. So if I take it back to 16, 7, 10, 13, 14, 15, 16. If I press the reset button over here, we can then see, hopefully, that it's going to cycle through all 8 stages in the time it takes our kick to do 4 beats. So 1 bar. So now if you can listen to the kick, it should go all the way through 8 stages and back to the beginning in the time it takes our kick to do 4 beats. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just not doing that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. No, that's why. Okay, I can't count. 15, 16. Right, and if I now reset it, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, got there in the end. Yes, it is 16 steps, so it's exactly looping on 1 bar. So this is how Metropolix is set up. And on any of these buttons, if you ever want to get back to the default setting, you just push and hold the encoder here. It says set defaults, and it comes back to this. This is how it's set up. Now if we start playing with the stages, so if you look on the screen, it has these 2 arrows pointing left and right. That means that this encoder will change that number. It also has a flashing kind of square box around the thing that is active on the screen. So now if you can see, we're only using 7 stages. So we're now back to being out of time. So we had 16 steps. On the 7 stages, we only have 14. So it's looping every 14 steps. We can keep taking it down. So now it's using the first 4 steps, which have 7, which can be quite pleasant. There is a shortcut here as well. If you are on the stages and you hold the length button, you can push any of these buttons here to change the length of the stages. So here, we're only using the first stage. If I push this button here, we'll go back to using all 8, and you can see going on. So this is a very quick way, if you're in the middle of a performance, to change things around. One of the other features on the length menu, which is extremely useful, is the offset here in the corner. You access that by pressing the Alt button and then turning the encoder. And what this does is that it moves the sequence along by 1. So we're using the first 5 stages. If I set the offset to 1, the first beat will be the second. We'll not be using 1 to 5, we're actually using 2 to 6. So if you have the stages set to less than 8, you can get different rhythms, different beats just by moving along. starting on stage 4 and going to stage 8. So we're using these 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can see that you can get some really interesting rhythms. It also wraps around, so we can start on offset by 6 and start on step 7. It'll go from 7, 8, and 1, 2, and 3. And then again, if you want to just get back to where you were, you hold this and it comes back to the start. When you're in any of these menus, if there is a second option here with a dot, if you press the encoder, this lower section of the screen becomes active. And so we can now, by changing the encoder, alter the number of pulses. So rather than being auto, we could set it to be 8. So this one now, whatever's set here, after 8 pulses, it'll just loop back to the beginning. We'll always be in time. Okay, so we can change these and it'll loop at a different point. Again, there's a great shortcut here as well. So if pulses is highlighted, you can click length and you can change the number of pulses and it goes up in 8s. So again, this is helpful because this will always be in time, so we can have 2 bars here. It doesn't matter what we change here, it'll always be in time. So again, I will reset, get back to the start, and change so we need it back again. So if we have it set using all 8 stages and set to auto, we can then go on to the second menu, which is the order menu. And it's important to have the auto function highlighted for this to work. If you click on order, this is another way that you can change your sequence. So the top of the screen is play order and the bottom of the screen is forward. So we are on linear forward. So it's going along all 8 as per the pulse count and the gate types that we've set, and it's going forward from left to right. If you click the encoder in, when it has 2 dots here on the menu, it's an either or. So if you just click it in, it's now going backwards, so it's going from 8 to 1. Obviously messing with these kind of things is interesting when we come on to having 2 tracks running at the same time. One could be going forward, one could be going backwards. I'll keep it on forwards for now. And when we're then highlighted on the top of the menu, play order, you can then change that, and it has many different functions here, many different settings rather. So ping pong will go up to the end and come back. Now, we had 16 steps. Let's just go back 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Right, so we have 16 steps. So even though on the length screen here we're set to auto, it will do the 16 steps and we'll always be in time with our rhythm. If we go to auto here, we go to ping pong, we'll immediately be out of time because in ping pong it does the first step and the last step twice. So it plays 8, then it plays 8 again and comes back to 1. So you'll see that 8 is set to 3, so it'll do 6 steps. Pendulum will keep us in time because it only plays 8 once. So it'll play it 3 times and then come back. Odd and even, so it plays 1, 3, 5, 7 and 2, 4, 6, 8. So again, using a very simple set of pitch sliders, you suddenly get very different rhythms. And it's worth going through all of these because some of them are great. So you jump by 2, jump by 3, so now we're going from 1 to 4, cycling through. Jump by 4, it's obviously only playing 1 and 5. But you can combine these sequences with the length. So if you do want to keep it all in time, if you go on to the 16 pulses, so we've got a whole bar of notes. Now, the reason why I started on auto was because in this situation, some of these loops won't get to the end. So if I go back to the one I said, pendulum, ping pong. Ping pong goes on to the end, and it's supposed to play 8 twice and then come back to the beginning. Well, because we've only set to 16 steps, it doesn't do that. It doesn't get to the end. In fact, if I put in more here, it won't even get to 8 before it's resetting. So it doesn't do the full ping pong before resetting. It's kind of pointless because it'll only go up to here and then it'll reset, so it's not doing the backward part of it. But if you want to keep in time, if you went to something like jump by 3, so this is jumping by 3. This is going from 1 to 4 to 8 and then back to 3. But however far it gets through this sequence, it will always reset back to the start so that you're always in time. Some of these can really get some great rhythms. There's also a sort of quasi-arpeggio function here. Hopscotch goes from 1 to 3, then 2 to 4, then 5 to 3, then 6 to 4. All of these are in the manual. So ARP 3 goes up, goes 1, 2, 3, then 2, 3, 4, then 3, 4, 5. But obviously it'll only do that as much as we've got notes. I mean, you can get some really great rhythms. I really like things like this. And then what you can do is you can save some favourites. So if you say you like this sounds really good. So you hold order and you hold, say, the second one. And it says in here, saved shortcut. So I've already saved the normal sort of linear one and the first button here. And to access them, you hold order and you just press it. Not quickly, you just press it. You don't hold it. And it'll load up the shortcut. You see, we're back to linear, so we're back to going forwards. That gives you one rhythm, and then if you do the same again and hold your second shortcut, we're back to this ARP 3 minus 1. It's great, and you can set up a whole series of these. Let's just see if we can find another one that sounds pretty good. Converge goes from 1 to 8 to 2 to 7 to and goes into the middle and then back again, and diverge starts in the middle and goes out. Growing goes from 1 to 1 to 2 to 1 to 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because we're resetting after 16, we don't get very far. But you could combine this. This is quite a good rhythm. You could combine this with an offset and change which notes it's doing this to. So if we go back to length here, hit Alt and just offset it by, say, a couple, we'll do these 3. Anyway, let's go back to order. Shrinking does. Brownian is quasi-random, where it has something like a 50% chance of going to the next step, a 25% chance of going back, and a 25% chance of jumping. So a little bit random. Shuffle, I really like shuffle. Shuffle is like shuffling a deck of cards, so it will create a random order, but then it will loop that random order. So it's random the first time, and then if you hear this, now that we've selected this is now no longer in a random order, it's repeating the same order again and again. And we can keep going. If we press the reset button, it'll shuffle again and we'll get a different random order, and then it'll stay on that different random order. And we can keep going until we like something. Doing much for me. Let's add a little single note here. final one is random. So this now is each step is completely random and will remain random. So if it goes on step 1, it then has an equal chance of going on any of the 8 steps, including 1 again, and it'll just keep going. So this might be okay if you're recording it and you can find a loop that you like. So just keep going, and that's it. You could just hold that to reset. So we're now back to using all 8 stages, and if you go to length up 16, no offset. Okay. So I set the tempo here a bit slower than in part 1. We're at 110 BPM because some of this is quite hard to follow when we're playing 16th notes at a faster tempo. So we're going to division now. So the top of this is clock division, and this is on a track basis. You can also change the clock division on a global basis if your incoming clock happens to be different to the setting that you want. I have it here. You can see it flashing on a 16th note pulse. So on this particular track though, we have it divided by 1, so it's doing the same. Each clock pulse is giving us 1/16th on the pulse count, but we can change it to half, and we're playing 8th notes now. Or you can change it to thirds, and 5 thirds, and we have a sort of triplet rhythm. Quarters, and then this should be in time with D, drum, beat. And we're back. And then if you then click on the encoder, you get to the bottom part of the menu. This is the pulse count division. Now, this can get quite complicated, and I might have to pause the video and go and check the manual on this. So at the moment, for each pulse that we are receiving from the clock, Metropolix is putting out 1 pulse, 1 note. So the first step here is set to 2, and we are getting 2 pulses. You can see it flash twice and hear it flash twice. If we set it to divided by 2, and this is set on 2, you're only getting 1. So it's basically taking those 2 clock pulses, dividing them by 2, and saying, right, if you've got 2 pulse count here, I'm only going to give you 1. And on 2, this is kind of fine, so this is then effectively, this is quite cool in just terms of changing the rhythm. Like, I immediately quite like that compared to that, which is the 1 pulse. So this is definitely something worth experimenting with. Where it gets complicated is if you start to have something which isn't a 2. So that is now dividing it by 3. So here we've got 2, but each clock is being divided by 3. So we get 2/3 of a gate on this particular one. If I change it to 3, that's effectively giving us 1 pulse. If I go to 4, now each clock pulse is being divided by 4. So we're still getting 1 here because we've got 3 pulses divided by 3, so we're getting effectively 3/4 per pulse. If I then change this to 4, we will get 1 pulse, as we should. 4 divided by 4 is 1. If you go above, if the pulse count here is above what you're dividing by, so 5 will be 5/4. That means on this stage we'll get more than 1 pulse. If I change it to 5, you'll see we're getting 1 normal pulse, and then we're getting 1 very short pulse at the end, because we're getting 1 1/4 notes. 5/4. I know, we're back to maths again. That's why this can get very complicated. So on the second one, we've got 2 pulses divided by 4, so we're getting a half. So we have 1 beat, then a quarter note, and then a half note. So you can start to get these very complicated syncopated rhythms and end up with something quite good. Now, whether you can exactly work out what you're going to get before you start playing, I don't know, but it's still quite fun. now I've changed it to 2, and we're on 5, so 5 over 2 is 2.5, so we'll get 2.5 beats in. The third, 2 normal ones, and then the third one is like a half beat really quick, and it gets cut off. Like that again, so this is definitely something that I've been playing with quite a lot. That is it on the track divide division menu. I'll just reset it to standard, so we're back to where we are. Okay, moving on, the next button is swing. This one is thankfully a bit more straightforward. This is on a per track basis, and this at 50% swing, there is no swing. It doesn't go any lower than that. If I turn to the left, and it can go up to 78%, I believe. And this will just introduce an element of swing to this particular track. Again, this is on a per track basis, so the other track that we're going to come on to, track 2, could have a different swing, so you get a bit of a groove going. So I think that sounds pretty good. Again, there's shortcuts on all of these, so if I go to swing and press one of these stage buttons, I think the first one should be 50%, yeah. So we're back to the start, and then they just go up in increments. So at a high level sim, you can really start to hear that is not quite on the grid. Again, it might be something that you like to do, but you know, a level of swing combined, if we go back to with a pulse count that is not 1, pulse count that is greater than 1 here, you can really start to get some grooves that you might like. Yeah, that works. Okay, I will go back to standard on both of those. Now the next track button is slide. And for this button, we actually need to have some slides enabled on our stage menu. Now, we haven't gone through this, so I'll just do it quickly to demonstrate, and we will come back to that. If I press edit and slide, then we are now in the slide menu, and you can see on the screen we have 8 circles which are not filled in. If I put on 2 slides there on steps 3 and 6, these 2 buttons that are lit, these 2 higher notes now have a slide on them. We go back to the slide menu. So the standard is to have 20%, and there are 3 types of slide. Again, I may have to refer to the manual because this can get quite complicated. So on the standard analog setting, right, I'm back. I've had a quick look at the menu. Okay, so first at the top is easy. We can just increase the amount of slide. You begin to see that the pitch is sliding between steps 2 and 3 and 5 and 6 up to these higher notes. Now in analog, the slide time remains constant regardless of tempo. So if you speed this up or slow down, the amount of time it takes to slide between these 2 notes is the same. It's also independent of the pitch interval, so it'll take just as long to slide up to here as it will if I move this down to a close note. And it's hard to hear this, but if I slow the tempo down, so the time it takes to slide between these notes is constant. Doesn't matter if it's a big jump or a small jump or slow or fast, it's the same. And if we then move on to tempo, which is the second one, this is relative, and so it's a subtle difference, but the time it takes to slide changes as the tempo changes. So it will be slower at this speed. We're at 60 BPM, and as I speed it up, the time it takes to slide here between these 2 notes and these 2 notes will increase as the tempo increases, whereas on the analog slide function it won't. So if we go back to 110, the time it takes is much quicker. I think you can hear that. If we keep going up in tempo, it's really quick. If I can go back here on the menu to analog, maybe we'll be able to hear that the time will slow down compared to this. It's a bit more of a pause here on this particular one as well. It is subtle, but worth exploring. Right, back to 110 BPM, and let's take us back to our basics. So the third type is what they call acid. Now acid is a bit different. So on this, what it does, the other two modes put the slide on this particular step. So if I have slide set on step 3, it's on this. Acid does it on the following step, so it slides down, and it will also, if I change the pulse count to this long one and put this on multiple, it will also change this gate type on the slide to, it'll hold it. So if I put the following one on hold as well, so these now are sliding down. It's a constant time for the slide again, so regardless of the tempo, so more like the analog. The difference between this one and analog is when the slide is applied. Analog is applied at the start of stage 3, whereas acid is applied at the end of stage 3 or stage 6, as I have it here. The amount. Increase the resonance. Too much. It's not quite TV 303. But you get the idea. Right, we'll reset that, and I will just take off our slides. We'll go to the final menu. So the final menu here is the gate menu, and again, this on the surface looks quite straightforward, but can get quite complicated because in these stage buttons, which again we haven't got onto yet, you can override the length of the gate. So at the moment the gate length is 50% on all of these. So every time I have a pulse, a single pulse, it's 50% of the gate. I can reduce it, and you see that reduces it across all of them, much more plucky. Or we can increase it. And again, sorry, there's also shortcuts here. So we can just, very quickly, we can go from a plucky beats to a more legato style, where it's basically holding it up and each one is being held. Again, quite a nice performance feature. That's gate length, and that is relatively straightforward. Gate scale is only really used when you have specified a specific length of gate in this menu here where it says gate, and so this is like a globe. So if I'm reducing to 50%, the gate length on each of these is 50% of 50%. The gate scale is like a global function. I will attempt to show you what this means, but I think I will come back to this as well. So if I go to the gate menu and on, say, gate 4 selected here, then on the menu 2 pulses to, I don't know, something random, 77%. I then go back to our track menu and gate. If I reduce the gate length as I did before, it doesn't affect step 4. So the gate that I have changed on step 4 on the stage function overrides the gate length of the track. So even though all of these gates are short, stage 4 is still long. And if I go onto the gate scale and reduce it, I go down to 50%. Now we have gate length of 25%, and overall for this whole track it's 50%, so we're on 12.5% for each of them. This stage 4, which I set to something like 77%, is now half of that, so it's doing it at 38% or whatever it is. So that's where, even though you fix this gate length, you can then still adjust it. So everything is now 10% of 25%, so you can barely hear any of them apart from this one. Again, interesting way of getting variations quite quickly. So I could set the gate length to 100%, but each of these, because they're only at 10% of 100%, they're at 10%. So the gate on step 1 is 10%. The gate on stage 4, which I set to 77%, is now 7.7%. As I said, this can get quite complicated. Something to experiment with. But, okay, I've now just cleared this. I will come back to these lovely colourful buttons here, because this is the next stage of adjustments and variations that you can bring into this. But with just the basic pitch, pulse and gate time, which we went through in part 1, together with the track buttons here, you can see you can already create an enormous amount of variation from a very simple start. And that's it for part 2. Part 3, we will look at these buttons down here. Hopefully I'll be able to explain them, because this gets quite complicated.